The Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association presents Freshman Focus. A look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by El Dorado Scioto Downs. Racing begins May 11th with the next generation July 1st. By Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standard-bred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. And by the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center, caring down to a science. Now here's your host, Roger Houston.
Welcome to another edition of Freshman Focus. We've made the trip to Radnor, Ohio to sit down and talk with trainer Chris Beaver about his 2-year-olds in training. And then we've made the trip from Chris's farm in Radnor, Ohio to the Delaware County Fairgrounds, here the home of the Little Brown Jug.
Looking for your next quality standard-bred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. Sugar Valley's lineup of stallions includes world champion Down by the Seaside, Lather Up, the fastest horse in harness racing history, Little Brown Jug champion Well Said, and the newest stallions to the Sugar Valley lineup, Adios champion Catch the Fire, and the son of Hambletonian champion Muscle Hill, Marseille. Sugar Valley Farm, the home of champions.
Welcome back to this edition of Freshman Focus with trainer Chris Beaver. Chris, this year, going to Florida and coming back from Florida, the weather's been pretty good for you, both locations.
Yeah, we had a good winter training here. Even didn't miss too many days. Probably the toughest thing, when we came back from Florida, it turned cold and rainy for a while. We missed some time there, but it hasn't been bad.
Total number of 2-year-olds in your stable this year?
Yeah, I would say 18 to 20.
Mm-hmm. Now, you do have a number of 3-year-olds back this year.
Yeah, I brought too many back, really. Some of them are just average horses, and they take up a lot of time. Did not have a good crop of 2-year-olds last year, and they really haven't come back to be good 3-year-olds either, but that's kind of what I should have expected.
And you've kept some age horses as well.
Yeah, we have half a dozen nice aged horses. In fact, they set a couple world records a few weeks ago up at Northfield, and we've got that Kildare King as well that's been racing in the Open. So yeah, I keep some of the nicer ones around to race.
You have that 5-year-old winning ticket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he tore suspensory at the end of his 3-year-old year. Last year, we just kind of got him started back. He tore it again coming back, but finally seems like it's set up. And, he trod in 52 flat at Northfield 2 starts ago, and then come back and finish second, but trotted 51 and 4. So he definitely seems like he's back to his old self now.
Is he a gelding?
Yes.
You see a long career for him?
Well, I hope so, but we're dealing with a torn suspensory, so that's about as bad an injury as you can deal with a trotter long term. But, we always just figured we'd race him, and, when he can't race anymore, we'll take care of him after that. So he'll have a home with us anyway. So.
I went to the facts, and there's some things I'm not sure you're even aware of, but I'll point them out to you. You realize as far as driving is concerned, and you do drive 50, 60 races a year, but you've got 96 career wins as a driver. Are we going to get to that 100 mark this year?
All right. Well, I don't know. I probably only drive 9 or 10 times a year, honestly, but sometimes I'll end up with a horse that I got to drive because nobody's getting along with him that well. I mean, it could happen this year for sure. I'll try to get there. So.
Yeah, when you get close, you'll pick up some more drives, I'm sure. Maybe you can get you some catch drives somewhere.
Right.
As a trainer, $29 million in your lifetime as a trainer. You've won 1,395 races as a trainer with 7,467 starts. Now, I haven't looked at other trainers to see what their career totals are, but your career total is 19%, and I think that's kind of high for a trainer over the entire career.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of years where we have, end up with a pretty high training percentage through the course of the year. So, I mean, yeah, I've been lucky, and we raced Ohio, we raced the fairs, so that kind of pads your win percentage a little bit too. But I'm glad to hear it. I always think of this business as a career business, and you want to do well over your whole career, even through the bad times in it. So
now, your training methods are a bit different than other trainers we've talked to. Let's take us through the process. You break them in what month?
We tend to break them right away when we get them from the sale. So September, October, they're broke.
The month of December, and you're still here, I guess. How fast are you going?
Well, we usually, I try to do about as much as they're willing to do in December. They're still learning, so, they're not going right out there and going fast, but, we can go 40, 45 here sometimes in December. The reason I do that, most of my 2-year-olds have been trained on this farm, not in Florida, and we always have bad weather in January, February, so I like to get ahead of the game, get to a point where we can coast through January, February when the weather's bad, and then pick up in March.
Do you take your entire stable to Florida?
No, we've been splitting. Most of my 2-year-olds usually train here at the farm, and I'll take older horses down to Florida. I'm probably going to change that up next year and keep about everything in Florida. Mainly for myself. I'm getting tired of training out in the cold weather. I'd like to train them all in Florida, but we have been slowly transitioning to where more and more are being trained down there.
Now you come up in the end of April or mid-April?
It depends on the stake races. I try to get up here, a week or two before we have to for the stake races here in Ohio. The Hackett, it's kind of the determining factor when I have to get my 3-year-olds up. Now I did have a dozen 2-year-olds in Florida this year, and I kept them there till close to the 1st of May.
And what kind of a speed did you have in that 1st of May?
Those horses in Florida had trained around 2.9 on the 1st of May.
Now, was that jog cart, race bikes?
Race bikes.
Just race bikes?
Yeah, that was the one time we trained them in race bikes. They had been 1 mile and 15 in jog carts. Before that, we stuck them in race bikes and then went in 2.9.
Now, once your operation gets here, you've got them at the farm here in Radnor. When do you start taking them for a second trip to Delaware?
Taking them to Delaware for us is pretty time consuming, so I try to get as far down as I can here at the farm. I'll stick them in race bikes and train them in 15 or 16 here on this farm track. First time we went to Delaware, they trained between 5 and 7 off of that mile in 15.
Now, a lot of the trainers are at training centers or farms that do it. What's the fastest mile you ever recorded here at your farm?
Somewhere between 2.2 and 2.3, and that's moving. I figure there's something like an 8-second difference from this track to Scioto Downs, or
Do you notice a change in the horses when you're here at the farm for their first trip, and then when you go to the second trip at Delaware? Does some things change with them?
Well, our first trip up to Delaware, I usually I'll take them up there and go both trips there, so they get used to it. The track there is much easier for them to get around at Delaware. So yeah, it's everybody that trains with me notices the difference in the horses. They just come alive there. And that's what we're hoping for, because the hardest speed to get out of them is the last bit before you're qualifying. So, it's nice to have that boost. When you're about ready to go.
Now, will you qualify all your 2-year-olds at Delaware on those 2 special days that they have?
Most of my Ohio breds will qualify there. I have 8 or 9 that are dual eligible horses that will qualify, maybe sooner. They have a very early stake race at Oak Grove, and I'm still deliberating whether I want to be ready for that or not. But I may qualify 8 or 9 horses sooner.
I thought of one other thing that a little different with your operation. Your 2-year-olds are, when the time they get to the races, shipping is a regular occurrence for them.
All right, yeah, that is the good thing with hauling them up there. They've gotten used to loading and all that. We also never have too much trouble with the starting gate because I have an equicizer here, so they're used to being on that gate. We have a gate that we hook behind the vehicles here, but usually one time on that and we're ready to go for the qualifiers.
You qualify, got any spots for the next generation?
Yeah, I have a colt and a filly trotter spot. So.
Now, are you pretty sure who you're going to enter, or is that still going to be a couple weeks away?
It's usually a last-minute decision for me. I definitely have some that are top contenders in my eyes, but I hate to say it right now because I own both the slots myself, and I'd like to race the horses most suited in it when the time comes.
One thing we'd like for you to do, though, when we go to the stalls and take a look at the horses, let us know who you're thinking about for the next generation when we're talking about that.
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah.
Give us a little heads up,
Yeah.
Okay. After these messages, we'll go into the barn and take a look at the 2-year-old Ohio breds in training for Chris Beaver.
Athletes, they come in all shapes and sizes. They catch, they leap, they run. Some athletes even come with 4 legs and paws and hooves. When these beloved family members need care, remember the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center. Ohio State experts wrote the book on exceptional animal care and know how to get our best friends back on their feet. The Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center.
Racing is back at El Dorado Scioto Downs. Catch the excitement all summer long in the new grandstands. Live racing every Tuesday through Saturday nights. Tuesday and Wednesday post time is 3:15. Thursday through Saturday, the first race post time is 5:50. Mark your calendar to see the future stars with a $150,000 Next Generation on July 1st. Horse players earn points with the new Caesars Rewards program. El Dorado Scioto Downs. Live racing is back.
This is the gelding trotter, OK Corral by Triumphant Caviar out of Lots to Live Up To by Armbro Iliad. And the special thing about this one, I understand Tom Charters of Breeders' Crown and Hamiltonian Society fame is a part owner.
Yeah, he got involved with breeding the mare, the dam of this colt. It was from a family my dad used to have, and he got a hold of me and asked me to take a look at this horse and train him, and we worked something out, and here he is.
How's OK Corral been doing?
So far, I'm really happy with him. I had a brother to him that didn't turn out so good, so I was a little leery on this horse getting started. He hasn't had like a super attitude right down, but the closer I get to racing, he's gotten better and better. We trained him in 2-3 and change today, so and he was willing to do it, so I'm pretty happy.
This time of the year, 2-3 and change, is that about normal for your stable?
I think we're a little ahead this year. I just decided to let them go on and do what they're going to do.
Once you get ahead of schedule, do you back off any, or you just keep them at that?
I'll train them another time or two, but we're pretty close to qualifiers now. Just a few weeks off.
This is the 2-year-old gelding OK Corral by Triumphant Caviar. This is the filly Lolita Pop by Sebastian K.S. out of Riley's Dream by Muscle Hill. And this would be, I guess, the first crop of Sebastian K.S. here in the state of Ohio.
Right.
Been standing in Pennsylvania. Did you want to get a Sebastian K? Is that how you came up with this one?
No, I've partnered up on a horse named Centurion ATM that's standing stud here in Ohio with owners of this filly, and they ended up sending her to me to train. But she's a really nice filly.
Now, Lolita Pop is one that we just jogged. Now, the next time you train her, will she go to Delaware as well?
I might start her a little earlier. She is Kentucky eligible, and she's trained in 2-3 and done it pretty nice. So I might go ahead and qualify her, see how she qualifies, decide if there's a early sire stake at Oak Grove, and we'll just decide if we're going to go down there or not.
What do you think about this dual eligibility? Do you give a little extra thought about horses that have dual eligibility?
Yeah, it's really nice to have that when you're setting out the stake schedule. It doesn't really line up great with Ohio, but you know, it's just another option for racing. And you know, the more races you have that you can race in, the more money you can make. So.
More money to make, and that's what it all comes down to, really. Yeah. Now, as far as breaking her and getting her to the track, has she been a easy one to get there?
She struggled with my track a little bit, getting around the turns. Her turns are probably her weak spot, but she's learned it, and you know, and she's been really good at Delaware. Now, you know, her growth plates bother her, so you know, watching her jog, you know, she shows a little bit of soreness jogging, but she throws it right away and goes when she's training. So.
This is the 2-year-old filly, Lolita Pop by Sebastian K.S. This is a 2-year-old gelding, Uncle Ruckus by Uncle Peter, out of Minor Scrimmage by Conway Hall. A gelding, I think last year you told us that one of the big decisions was the horses that your dad was going to train. You always wanted to send him the geldings. Now your dad was actually working with you at Florida. What's the determination when you geld a horse?
Well, this horse was pretty rotten in the beginning. Like he was a jerk, so you know, he didn't get to keep his testicles very long.
That's an automatic call.
Right, right.
The ones that you carry over as a stallion, they have to show you something special.
Yeah, I will go by the pedigree a little bit, and you know, if they're manageable, if they're all right to work with, you know, I'll usually leave them a stud if we don't have too much trouble with them, you know. But you know, by the time we're done, I think I've got 3 studs left as 2-year-olds. So you know, they usually give you a good reason if you aren't determined to keep them as a stallion.
This one being a gelding, does that decision usually made up here before you go to Florida, or?
It can happen at any time. You know, I could still be gelding horses. We don't have any that need it at this point, but you know, it's when they become bad on the track or unmanageable in the barn, you know, then we start to think about it.
Uncle Ruckus looks like he's got some, in fact, almost all your horses today, at least out on the racetrack, and the ones that we saw jogging, got some good size to them.
Yeah, I mean, I would avoid tiny horses most of the time when I'm buying them, if possible.
You don't really look at them too much.
I look at them, you know, if the pedigree's good enough, you know, and I factor that into the price. A lot of people still pay good money for small horses. I'll buy them if they're bargains.
Yeah, the price on horses when you go to the sale, do you usually stick to what you think should you get the horse for?
A lot of times I'm buying horses and not really worried about who's buying in with me and whatnot. So I usually put a price on those. You know, sometimes I'll get involved with people and they'll push me to a lot higher price on a horse because they're going in with me, and you know, we know what we're spending. But you know, I tend to put a price on everything and try to stick to it.
The price range that you look at, 25, 50.
It's gone to, you know, I would say my horses probably average 25 this year, you know, whereas in the past I was more like a 12 to 15 kind of buyer, but you know, everything's gone up and it's hard to buy them that cheap anymore. So.
How's this one been on the track?
Very good. He's one that you'll see cutting a mile on the front end, you know, and that's usually a good sign. That means it's a horse willing to go on and showing enough speed cut the mile. I don't feel like they're going to be tired at the end, you know.
Now, even if he's one that you like to cut the mile with, do you sometimes put him in a hole? And
Oh yeah, he's normally in the hole his first trip, you know, when we're going slower. But you know, you have to put a horse on the front that isn't going to get beat up on the front. So, you know.
I noticed here on the farm they change position every time you go around the track. That wasn't the case so much at Delaware.
Well, yeah, our first trip we'll go out and we'll jog the right way a couple miles, and we're just jogging, but we're changing position and, you know, just constantly teaching them to relax. That's the goal. You know, when we go to Delaware, we turn and burn. So.
That's the ultimate goal, get them to relax. The Gelding Trotter, Uncle Ruckus by Uncle Peter. This is the 2-year-old gelding, Spanzano by Coraggioso out of Grace and Charlie by SJ's Caviar. I understand you got this one on gate as a weanling.
Yeah. Joe Spadaro and I saw him on gate and ended up buying him as a weanling.
So you've had him almost most of his whole life.
Yeah, I raised him at my farm.
Yeah. How's he been?
He's been as nice as a horse can train, really. He's trained up here at the farm all winter, but you know, he's one of the few that I've still got going with no hobbles because he hasn't given me any reason to put him on yet.
So you're now waiting till a reason to put them on rather than putting them on from the get-go?
Yeah, and I'll pay for that probably. I mean, I really don't like to race him in Ohio without him, but you know, I hate to put him on a horse that doesn't need him either.
Does it matter a half-mile track or 5/8 for trotting hobbles?
No, I think, you know, Ohio's Ohio, and they burn them off the gate. They go, and you know, the drivers aren't holding on to them too much early in the mile. So, you know, it's much different. You know, I got a bunch of Kentucky eligible horses, and most of them are not in hobbles. But I just look at Ohio as different. You know, you have to be ready for the environment. And the environment is that they're not going to be holding them back when they leave the gate, so you got to help them out a little bit.
So it's not so much the horse, but it's the environment they live in and the way racing is here in the Buckeye State.
2-year-olds, they're not, you know, they'll go right on out of there, and you know, there's no holding them together. So
this is the Gelding Spanzano by Coraggioso. This is another What the Hill filly, Roxanna, out of Miss Pollyanna by Chip Chip Hooray. Oh, I remember Chip Chip Hooray, a world's record at Delaware, Ohio, when he was a 3-year-old, I believe.
Yeah.
What about Roxanna?
So, you know, I've been a little leery of this one because I had the full sister to her. Trained down real good, but she hit a wall, you know, around 2.5, and then she ended up breaking down as a 2-year-old. This filly has not shown any sign of weakness to this point. We trained her in 3 and change today, and she was strong doing it. So I included her because she hasn't really done anything wrong to this point.
So she was willing to take another chance.
Yeah. Well, this is Sandra Burnett raised this filly, you know, so I end up training most of them out of these mares every year, and they've been real successful for me, you know. So, I mean, I think, you know, you always look at full brothers, full sisters, and you assume that, you know, one will be similar to the other, but so many times they prove you wrong.
What's the most important thing about choosing a yearling at the sale?
For me, I look at the page first, you know. It's always the pedigree page I look at first, you know, and nothing else matters if that's no good.
Mm-hmm. Do you pay a lot of attention to the videos?
The videos I use as you know, they're a tool to rule out horses. You know, I'll, you know, probably allow, you know, 70% of the videos are good enough, you know, and they're a factor, you know, when I'm looking at a horse. But you know, it's more like I pick out a horse on pedigree first, and then I'll go through and watch the videos. And if I see something just really that I don't want to deal with on the video, that's when I'll knock them out. But most horses I'll pass on the video.
This is the filly Roxanna by What the Hill. This is Ida's First Dance, a filly by Volstead out of Rose Run, Ida by Triumphant Caviar. I understand this was a sales topper at the select sale?
Yeah, she's out of a Volstead, out of a Triumphant Caviar mare. I had looked at her, you know, I was interested in the breeding. You know, I wasn't one of the top bidders on her by any means. She was bought by a group in Europe, but they got a hold of me afterwards and asked me to train her, and so far she's training good.
What'd she sell for?
170.
How high did you go on the bidding?
I never got a bid in. No.
Probably never dreamed that you'd be getting her to train, though.
No, it was a bit of a surprise. Yeah.
They know the name, Chris Beaver. How's she been out on the racetrack? Is she worth $170,000 right now?
She doesn't really do anything wrong. She reminds me a lot of a mare I had named Custom Cantab training down. You know, you gotta train her on a helmet. She's not much for training on the front end, but she's not wearing hobbles. She's good gaited. She does everything you ask her to.
Now this is the first crop of Volstead, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you've got two Volsteads. Are they kind of similar in any degree?
Similar in that they've got quick speed to them. Not much else is similar about the two of them. They're actually quite different, the two of them. Body-wise, looks are similar. But.
This is the sales topper at the select sale, Ida's First Dance by Volstead. This is the filly All About Allie by Long Tom out of My Way or the Highway by Muscle Massive. And this is the one I say is my top choice of the 11. Is she one of the better ones?
She's doing a good job, you know. She's typical of the Long Toms I've trained. They're all business, you know. I always worry a little bit about the depth in the Long Toms. You know, he's had a few last year that ended up very deep, but you know, she's not overly excited. She's not running over him wanting to go, but she does her job, does it right every time.
Now, you say she's not overly excited and just so-so. You think that'll change once she gets to the qualifiers? You hope it.
I hope it. You know, you never know what you're going to get. I've had some horses that ended up being very good and you couldn't hardly get them to go. She wants to go. She does her job, you know. She just doesn't knock your socks off doing it.
She make any mistakes though?
Nope, she doesn't usually make any mistakes.
Well, I hope you do well with this one, because this is the one I liked out of the 11.
Yeah.
All About Allie by Long Tom. This is the filly Maxine's Hill by What the Hill out of Maxine the Mighty by Tagliabue. And this is one of 3 What the Hills that we're featuring today.
Yeah, I like this filly. She's a full sister to Mighty Hill that was a world champion for me at 2. So she's been a little bit nicer really than he was training down. I don't know if that'll translate to racing, but you know, he was a real battle and didn't really come on until we were close to qualifying and do much right. But this filly's been pretty easy to train really.
Now, did you get this filly because of Mighty Hill probably?
Yeah, I looked at her because of Mighty Hill, you know, and she really didn't bring a lot of money. I think we paid 32 for her, and the mare's only had a couple foals before her, so you know, she wasn't a stunning individual by any means. She's grown a lot since we bought her, but I thought it was a good price on her.
Do they grow a lot right after the sale, or does most of them get their growth pattern once they get towards the 3-year-old season?
I think it's gradual, but I notice it the most, you know, late in the game towards when we start racing.
On the racetrack, has she been pretty good for you?
Yeah, she's been pretty easy, really. She does wear trotting hobbles. We had a little phase there where she didn't like to be pulled and come on the outside, so we trained her in the hole more. But you know, she's a real killer on the racetrack. She'll, you know, if you wait till late and pull her, she'll go by about any of them.
These traits that they develop out on the racetrack, you said she didn't like going to the outside or something like that. It takes a lot of patience. You got to work them and get them used to that to some degree, I guess.
I think the main thing is to head it off before it becomes too big of a problem. You know, many times, you know, I've had horses that, you think, oh, they're just going to do it once or twice, and if you don't change their patterns and fix it, then it becomes a big problem, and sometimes it's one you never fix.
Yeah. This is the filly Maxine's Hill by What the Hill. This is the filly Sweet Lady by Volstead out of Turquoise Sweetie by Dream Vacation, another one of your Volstead horses.
Yeah, he seems to throw some natural horses so far, so at this point that's a good thing with 2-year-olds.
What kind of a price does this one have?
I believe she was $65,000. Another one I was given after the fact when she was sold.
Do you sometimes feel at the sales the first crop goes for a little higher prices than maybe?
They certainly seem to on the Volsteads, and I do see that a lot with first crop sires, that people get pretty high on them and pay a lot for them.
The breeding state here in Ohio is on the improvement each and every year, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we're getting better mares every year. It's getting tougher to compete here. I'd still take a Triumph and Caviar, as well as any other stallion, but the breeding is definitely on its way up, and and especially on the pacing side. If I had to deal with pacers, I'd probably have to pay a lot more for my horses.
This filly, is she similar to the other filly out on the racetrack?
No, not at all. This is one of those, that she's got a lot of speed, but she kind of makes you earn it as a trainer. We've had to work with her pretty good, but she does have a lot of go to her, and that's why I put her in on this group, because she just doesn't seem to have it.
What do you do to get them into that mood of more speed?
Oh, well, she wants the speed. It's about keeping her on gait, like even when she was training down in Florida, she was in trotting hobbles, we made adjustments to her shoeing, to help get her there.
But she still got the hobbles on up here?
Yes, yeah.
Is she slowly but surely making progress then for you?
Oh yeah, she makes a lot of progress. She's got plenty of go, she's up with the others.
She jogged today. How much has she been?
I believe we trained her in 2.5 last week, yeah.
The next training station, will she be the one to go to the race bike?
Yeah, I expect we'll train her in between 2.3 and 2.4 tomorrow. Yeah, she was in the race bike before, but yeah.
That'll be at Delaware. You'll go in 2.3, 2.4. This is the filly Sweet Lady by Volstead. This is the filly Osaka Hall by Uncle Peter, on with the show by Conway Hall. Uncle Peter, you got two Uncle Peters. Are they kind of similar in any degree?
Not so much. No, I've had a lot of Uncle Peters, and typically I've found their attitude's a problem, But this crop this year has been a little better for me.
You mentioned earlier that the mares are getting better for the stallions in the state of Ohio, and that could be the case even with Volstead coming to Ohio as well.
Yeah, this filly, Alan Levitt had her, and he ran her through the sale, and ended up keeping her. I had looked at her, I liked her, and was interested in her, but I decided I had too many trotting fillies already, so I didn't even try. And then he got a hold of me and asked me to take her, but obviously he has really good mares, and this is from a really good family, and that makes a difference.
This Uncle Peter is one of, I believe, of the ones we're featuring today. 8 fillies that you had on the list. We found that to kind of be the trait with all of our trainers. Seem to have more fillies this year than colts.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be. I always end up with more fillies. I start with twice as many fillies, and I don't know why, other than, we buy stuff that's well bred, so we like to have fillies when they're well bred.
Now, her size.
It's a good size, yeah. She's a good size filly. She's training real good. She's actually dual eligible, so she's one that I may try to race in Kentucky before we start out in Ohio.
Now, today she was in that training.
Nope, she didn't train today.
So she jogged today.
Mm-hmm.
You're training tomorrow?
No, she trained on Monday. I might train her back light tomorrow, but not a fast mile.
But you won't take her to Delaware. You stay here.
No, she won't go.
Has she been to Delaware yet?
Yeah, she trained in 2-3 on Monday at Delaware. So, you know, I'm ready. If I'm going to Kentucky, I'm ready to qualify. You know, if they start having them next week. So,
when will you reach a point where you're pretty sure what you got? After the qualifiers, after their first start? We know they can change in that process, but
I think when I've got a couple qualifiers in them, I start to figure out, you know, they might throw in a bad first qualifier. I've had good horses that do that. You qualify them a couple times and they're not getting any better. You at least know you have one that isn't good enough, you know, but, you know, making that jump from a sire stake horse to a top sire stake horse, you know, you don't know that for a few, you know, until you've started them once or twice in real races, you know, beyond the qualifiers.
Now, will you drive them in their qualifiers, or will you go to the catch driver?
I'd probably drive in every qualifier that we're in. You know, there at Delaware, you know, we'll have 3 or 4 in each race. So, you know, I'm driving some, my second trainers are driving some, and, you know, Aaron or Ronnie or, you know, one of the other guys may be driving one.
Now, you realize qualifying wins don't count on that 96.
I know. I win a lot of qualifiers. Yeah.
This is the filly Osaka Hall by Uncle Peter. This is the filly She Used to Be Mine by What the Hill out of Market Rally by Cash Hall. She Used to Be Mine, your third What the Hill.
Yeah, you know, I'm not a tremendous fan of What the Hill at this point, but because I've had a lot of them. But what we've got is, you know, really good mares were bred to What the Hill for a few years, and you know, you buy the pedigree despite the sire, you know.
Don't name the sire, but are there certain horses that you just totally overlook because of the sire?
Yeah, I've got one in this state that I won't touch. Yeah, yeah.
So
But not usually. I usually look for the dam. Dam's much more important to me.
If you had to put it on a percentage-wise, how high of the percent towards 100 would you put the mare?
80.
80.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everybody says it's the mare. It's what you look for in that pedigree.
Yeah, that's where I am on it. I mean, I've had lots and lots of good horses by sires that everybody hated, and you know, but they were out of mares that produce.
Does the sire of the dam play a role in any way?
Yeah, you know what? You know, when I look at that as you know, there's crosses that work really well. You know, if you look into it, there's sires that cross really good to certain types of broodmare sires. For instance, you know, I know Triumph and Caviar is absolutely phenomenal with credit winner mares. So, you know, we look at that stuff when we're picking out yearlings.
Now, this mare, Market Rally, was by Cash Hall, and I think everybody was just mesmerized by Cash Hall when he time trialed at Delaware, world's record.
Right? Yeah, I remember seeing that. I was young, but I remember it.
They almost were going to cancel it because they had too many races that day, and I begged him. I says, "Don't cave, because half these people here have never seen a time trial, and it turned out to be a record time."
Right. Yep.
Now, on the racetrack for She Used to Be Mine, how's she doing?
She's a really interesting case. She's pretty far behind the others, like, you know, 7-8 seconds behind. But in February, she couldn't do anything. I couldn't train her in 3 minutes in February, and we found an OCD in her hind ankle that was really bugging her. So we had to take that out, give her another 30 days off. You know, so she really didn't get rolling until late March, April. Once I got her rolling, I mean, she's come right down. She's caught up, made up a lot of ground. So I think this is going to be a good filly, and she has a really good pedigree. She cost us a lot of money. So I think she's made to be a good horse. Things just didn't work out early on, you know, but you'll see her by the middle of the season for sure.
What's a lot of money?
We paid $95,000 for her. That was Joe Sabrocco really liked her, and I went along with him on it.
Is that about the highest priced one that you were involved in the bidding?
This year? Yes, I would say this year. I've gotten involved in some out-of-state horses that were, you know, as high as, I think we paid as much as $230 for one, but I only owned a small piece of it.
Now, you mentioned she was behind and she's catching up, but she won't totally catch up. She won't be one that she'll qualify in June, will she?
I don't see it. Probably more like early July. Yeah.
But one to watch in the future.
Yeah, I think so. She's made up a lot of ground. To me, that's a good sign.
This is the filly She Used to Be Mine by What the Hill. That wraps up another edition of Freshman Focus. We'd like to thank Chris Beaver, his second trainers, and the caretakers for making our job much easier today here at the farm in Radnor, Ohio. We hope that you'll join us again next week, the same time, same location, for another edition of Freshman Focus.
This has been Freshman Focus, a look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by Dorado Scioto Downs. Racing begins May 11th with the next generation July 1st. By Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. And by the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center, caring down to a science. Freshman Focus is a presentation of the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association.